Good afternoon and welcome to Active Classrooms Differentiating Instruction. So glad that you could join us for today's session and hope that you feel that it has been a benefit to your time, that you have joined us for this brief period. Please use the bubble chat question to the right of your screen anytime you have a question or comment, and I'll be glad to check those bubble chat questions as we go throughout the presentation today. Also, everyone has been muted so that the background noise is at a minimum, and I will leave those muted throughout the presentation. We will be using the text chat button in order to post our questions and comments today. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's get started with differentiating instruction using Active Classroom. We're looking at ways that we bring learning to students through a variety of venues, giving them opportunities through different Lexile levels, different modes of reading, and different modes of or media types as well. But providing students with a variety of ways to get at their learning. We're specifically going to look at how do we differentiate by Lexile level. And for those of you who are not familiar with Lexile level, as I wasn't, I will be sending you a cheat sheet that correlate your Lexile level to your grade level so that it's a little bit easier for you to work with. We'll also be talking about differentiating within reading, but not necessarily within the same title. And then we'll talk about differentiation by assessment types or media types. And then we'll also look at how do you in Active Classroom set up the groups so that you can assign different lessons to different groups of students. So that will be kind of at our conclusion today. So let's go ahead and log into our Active Classroom account just like you would any other time. And when you get to your home page may be slightly different than mine, but of similar nature. Let's go to Content, click on Content, and go to Find Activities. Find Activities. This is going to provide us with a way to do our search for the day. And what we're going to do today is we're going to start with a series title. We're going to start with We the People. We the People comes in 3 different Lexile levels within Active Classroom. Let's just click and do a search. And as you can see, We the People has populated below. And if we scroll down, we see that all the Lexile levels we're seeing at first glance is on the 830 Lexile level, which is about a 5th grade reading level. So if you look over here at our different titles, you'll notice that all of these are level 1. It comes up in level 1, then level 2, and then level 3 readings. So we want to sort it a little bit differently to kind of narrow down what it is we're looking at today and look at a variety of Lexile levels on a particular topic within We the People. So rather than looking at just the 830s, let's do something a little different. Let's add a keyword. For keyword, let's add freedom of expression. Freedom of expression, and then hit search, is going to allow us an opportunity to see a little bit different mix of Lexile levels here. We have a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3 lesson, all designed to talk about freedom of expression. Let's take a look at this first one. On the 830 Lexile level, we're going to look in our table of contents. This is about a 5th grade reading level. We'll look at our table of contents and see that in our table of contents, under freedom of expression, we have an introduction. We have what is freedom of expression, what are the benefits of freedom of expression, why was freedom of expression important to the founders, and so forth. Let's look at what is freedom of expression. Again, keeping in mind that we're looking at a 5th grade level, we're looking at what is freedom of expression, and we see that some of our vocabulary has been identified for us and defined, and then we have an explanation of what that freedom of expression is about. Next, let's look at ideas for discussion, keeping in mind that we're working on that 5th grade level. So not only are we talking about a reading level for 5th grade, but all of the components of this resource are designed to meet that 5th grade developmentally appropriate level. So here we have some ideas for discussion. What rights and interests might be endangered in this situation? Should this kind of expression be limited? So we're looking at what this is talking about here. What rule can you make to limit this kind of expression? So we're looking at ideas for discussion that are at this 5th grade reading level. Let's look at solve the problem. Here, the students are given a real-life Supreme Court case situation, and they are provided a little bit of background knowledge, and then they're provided a variety of opinions from which they are going to work. So all of this is designed on that 5th grade level, both the reading level and the activity levels. Let's go back, and now let's look here at our next one on the 920 Lexile level. Let's look at looking at our table of contents. Table of contents contains our teacher's guide, our overview, and all of our additional individual pieces. Again, looking here, we have an introduction. We have what is freedom of expression. What are some of the benefits of freedom of expression? So we see our topics. We have analyzing questions, ideas for discussion, and so forth. Let's look again at what is freedom of expression. Here, we see a little bit different presentation than what we saw in the 5th grade level. This is more around the 7th grade reading level and 7th grade activity level. This time we're looking at reading that the words are not as defined as they were previously, although there is some definition of words. And then we also have some primary sources that are included. In our primary sources, you'll see that we have the official definition of what the freedom of expression is as it reflects in the Constitution. Next, let's take a look at the ideas for discussions. Again, let's look at this one. Should schools be allowed to place limits on freedom of expression? Talking about a hot topic for students. You know they have something to say about that. So we can give this out to our students, and we can look at some of the primary sources and generate a very healthy discussion, pros and cons about limiting the freedom of expression in schools. And let's look at solve the problem. Again, similar to what we found in the 5th grade conclusion, here we are presented with a U.S. Supreme Court case. The students read the background knowledge of the case, and they're given the opinions and differentiating information about the case. So a very healthy look at what is freedom of expression based on a 7th grade look. Now let's go back. Now let's take a look at what's this third one down here. This is on a 1250 Lexile level. This is more around the 9th or 10th grade reading level. Let's take a look at how it differs. Going again to our table of contents. First of all, my table of contents looks a little more robust than it did in the 5th and 7th grade. That's kind of our first indication that we're at a little bit higher level. Also, I have an introduction, but there isn't one that says what is freedom of expression. Instead, we have why is protecting the right to freedom of expression important? A little bit higher level question to begin with. Let's take a look at that one. Okay, so we have a little bit higher reading, a little bit more depth of expression, of explanation. And let's take a look at, now we have, how do wars and emergencies affect free speech and press? We have a little bit of background information, a primary source, and we'll do some analysis with that and see what we think about, is there a time when the limiting of freedom of expression is appropriate? Our next section is, let's go back again to where we were doing our search and thinking about how that was all differentiated within a series where we have level text and we can look at basically the same topic on 3 different levels. Now let's look at how do we do that same search but within different series titles. First thing you always want to do is hit that reset button. Very important when you're doing searches to hit reset. So our next search is going to be, let's do a keyword search. For a keyword, let's use Boston Massacre and do our search for that. We get a variety of resources for Boston Massacre, but again, we're staying kind of focused on the fact that we want to look at different readings, but readings coming from a variety of series. so that they're not necessarily labeled text, but they are labeled readings. First one we're going to look at is going to come from Storyteller's History. Storyteller's History is written on about a 5th grade reading level, kind of a tongue-in-cheek reading. The author used to write history textbooks and was frustrated at the times he would find this really interesting information but wasn't allowed to include all of it in the textbook. So here he's just created his own books including that information that he found interesting. So let's look at Storyteller's History, King George, How to Start a Revolution. First, in our table of contents, you see, of course, there is a teacher's guide, and then we have a list of resources, which are all readings, with activities at the conclusion. Now, the interesting piece about this is you're going to do a number of readings before you get to the activities, and there's not an activity for all 13 readings. So rather than using the activity included here, I'm going to ask the students to highlight within the text. Let's go here to step 7 and just use Fire into a Crowd. We're going to use just the text that is appropriate for the Boston Massacre. I'm going to ask my students to read this and highlight based upon the information that I've given them. In order to highlight, students will drag their cursor across a portion of text, and then you'll come up to this pen and paper icon, click on that pen and paper icon, and now you have to decide, does the portion I highlighted constitute content important vocabulary, main idea, or supporting evidence? For the text I've highlighted here, I'm going to say main idea. Then click Save Changes. Both sides were expecting something to happen. Both sides are out here. They're on the street in Boston. They know that everybody's tense. They know something's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody knows which side's going to throw the first punch. All we know is that the tensions are rising. So we have main ideas highlighted, and on my right-hand side here, I have under annotations, main idea. Let's do something else. I'm going to drag my cursor across and highlight again. I'm going to go up here to my icon and get my pen and paper. And this time, I'm going to select supporting evidence. Now, I have in yellow supporting evidence. And you can see, again, it's on the right-hand side under annotation. Let's highlight a few more things and see what it looks like. I've added some more, and we have supporting evidence in several places. So my students are interacting with the text in a very engaging way where I can tell, when they submit this back, I can tell that they have actually read the passage that was assigned to them. It's a very important feature. We oftentimes assign text out, but we don't have a way of knowing that the students actually read what was assigned. Having them being required to highlight or annotate the margin required in that text is one way that we can determine that students have actually done the work we requested of them. Let's go back now and let's pick another topic. So in that particular series, we used 870 Lexile level, and we highlighted the text. Let's choose another one. This time, let's use Everyday Life, Revolutionary War, Colonial Resistance Grows. But let's take a look at what that's going to look like. So we're going to click on our View button, and here's Colonial Resistance Grows, our table of content, of course. We have introduction, we have an answer key, which is similar to what we would find in a teacher's guide. Then we have our reading, and under our reading, instead of having multiple readings, this one's a little reversed. We have one reading with multiple activities. So I could have the students do the reading, and then I could have them do one of any of these different activities. This one is write the lead paragraph for the Philadelphia Pronouncer, for the local newspaper. Or maybe I'd rather them have an opportunity to create a skit based upon what they've read. So different from our first one with Storyteller's History, where they had 13 different readings to choose from, and I chose only the one reading, the one focused on the Revolutionary War's Boston Massacre, and had them highlight. This one had one reading about the Boston Massacre, but with 4 different choices to how to interact with it after the reading. So I could give everyone one of those 4 different choices to do, or based upon differentiation within this one particular reading, I could also assign a variety of reading activities to go along with what I felt was most appropriate for individual students. Returning again to our collection of choices here, let's choose another one. Let's go with Common Core, and let's select the Common Core reading on U.S. History, the American Revolution. Again, in the in the table of content, there's a teacher's guide, and you'll see that we have, actually, you can't see all of them in this collection here, but there are 9 different readings to choose from, and I want to choose the one specifically about the Boston Massacre. So I'm going to come down here to number 6, Perspectives on the Boston Massacre. There is a basic level and an advanced level. A basic level means that we're working on grades 6 through 8, and an advanced level is grades 9 through 12. In my basic level, I have directions for the students, and I tell them specifically, we're working on Common Core Standard number 6, identify aspects of a text that reveal an author's point of view or purpose. A great opportunity for students to engage with the text with a very clear purpose in mind. They're going to be reading 2 primary source documents and really looking for what is the author's point of view or the author's purpose for this reading. So we have primary source document 1 and primary source document 2, and then 2 questions specifically tied to Common Core Standard number 6, looking at what is the author's point of view. So a great way for students to interact with text. And again, even within the reading, we can differentiate based on an advanced level and a basic level. But we're also differentiating in that we've looked at storyteller's history, which is written on a lower Lexile level but has a high interest. We've looked at another topic that was on the slightly higher Lexile level, and now we're looking at Common Core. So 3 different titles from which we are exploring the Boston Massacre. Let's look at the advanced level. Our advanced level gives instructions to the students, grades 9 and 10, grades 11 and 12. Again, we're looking for the author's point of view of comparing the point of view of 2 or more authors for how they treat the same or similar topic. So looking for the point of view of 2 or more authors on how they treat the same or similar topic. So again, we're going to look at advanced documents 1 and 2. They're going to be answering the 2 questions related there and specifically tying that back to their Common Core Standard number 6 at the 9th through 12th grade level. So a great way to differentiate our learning for students. There are other ways in which we can differentiate. Of course, we always want to start with resetting our search because we don't want anything to throw a glitch in our search. And this time, we're going to come in and we're going to use the term feudalism for our keyword. Feudalism and search. Now let's see what we have. We have quite a variety of resources here from which to choose, and we are going to choose for this one to begin with. We're going to choose a reading, and the reading is going to come from Everyday Life, Middle Ages, the Feudal System. So let's open that up. We have our reading here about the feudal system. Again, this is from Everyday Life, so we have 1 reading, and then we have 4 different activities from which to choose. So the student's going to read and do whichever of those 4 activities we have selected for them. Using our table of contents, we are able to find all that we need. We might have them create a dialogue or maybe recall information. So a reading activity with 4 different activity choices, it's easy to differentiate even with the reading, but we're going to differentiate based upon media types. So let's go back. That was a reading. Let's look at another type of activity. This time let's look at an atlas activity, a mapping activity. Let's look at Atlas of World History, Feudalism, and the Holy Roman Empire. When we open our lesson, we're going to use our table of contents. We have our teacher's guide, downloadable maps. Let's go here to teaching about history. You can see that we have a chunk of reading, followed by comprehension questions. Gathering the facts, we have information that's presented to us in a chart and in an image, followed by comprehension questions. So we're getting a variety of reading presented to us in a variety of ways, followed by comprehension questions. What a great way to use our informational text. Here we have a political map and a locator map showing where within the world or in the globe this particular area is located. Then we have people and cultures. We have people and their environment. Each of these different aspects provide us with content information, informational text, followed by comprehension questions. Another great way to provide for students who are more visual learners an opportunity to engage in similar content from what we saw in everyday life, but not as much reading. Now let's go to another one and let's look at another venue. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of my page here and I see that there are actually 2 pages of resources. Each page contains 20 topics. So I'm going to look over on page 2, and on page 2 I'm going to find a simulation called Living the Past, Feudalism. This simulation is a computer-generated simulation on feudalism. So we're going to look at our PowerPoint over here in our table of content. We have teacher's guide, PowerPoint, and then a variety of information here. We can see that this is going to be an online game with downloadable PowerPoint, which is how the game proceeds. The students act according to various moves and information that they are able to provide. We have the King's action here, again providing the students and the teacher with the information needed to execute this online simulation. So again, we're looking at ways that students can get at the same information but through a variety of ways, whether it's different Lexile levels within the same text, different Lexiles and different reading passages from a variety of authors and vendors. We also have a variety of media types so that we can engage students in what they need through ways that most meet their specific needs. Active Classroom is perfect for that. With the thousands of resources that we offer, we just provide so many outlets for teachers to reach their students in a way that is truly meaningful to that student. Now, how do we organize our students so that we can give them the information they need specifically? Let's look at creating groups. Let's go to People, in our toolbar, People, Add Organized Students. Add Organized Students. We're going to come to our Add Organized Students page. You've already got your classes created here on the left. We're going to come to the right and we're going to create new student groups. We're going to create groups of students based on some criteria that we have predetermined. Click on New Student Group, and for my first group, I'm going to go in here and check mark the students that I want to put into my first group. After I get my students populated, I'm going to name my first group, Group 1, and I'm going to give a description. What is Group 1? They are my below grade level readers. I click on Create Student Group, and I can see now that my Group 1 has been generated. Let's do that same process again and create our second group. Click on New Student Group, check on the students you want to populate into Group 2. I've got Group 2, my on-grade level readers, and click Create. Here's my Group 2. I now have 2 groups of students identified. Let's get our third group. New Student Group, populated with students. These are my above grade level readers. And now I have all 3 groups that I wanted to create for my students. And so now with some of my lessons, I'm going to differentiate based upon their reading needs. Give one group what I think is best for them, give Group 2 what I think is best for them, and Group 3 what I think will be the best for them in their advanced learning. Now let's go back to the top and look at Content, Find Activities. Again, we're back on the page where we had searched for feudalism and we had done some research and looked at a few different topics. Now we're ready to pick a few of these. Let's pick something and add it to our activity builder. I'm going to select the Atlas and maybe a little something else. There we go. I've got Atlas and Common Core. And I'm going to assign this the activity set feudalism and keyword. Keywords are hugely important. Like, I cannot tell you how important keywords are. This is the way you need to be able to search for lessons later, and it has to be something you can remember. Now, I've seen teachers name every activity set something different in a keyword, and I'm just going to tell you that becomes very confusing. Let's make our keyword very consistent, such as your last name, or U.S. history, or world history. For this one, I'm going to use webinar. That way I know I can find this lesson from my webinar again. And I'm going to save my lesson set, clicking the Save button at the bottom, and look, I've got a well done. If I hadn't done it correctly, I would have gotten an oops with a description of what I did incorrectly. So I did a well done, and now I'm ready to assign this out to my students. I'm going to click Assign and go to my Assign page, and I'm going to assign based on groups because we did just make the group, so I want to assign it based on groups. And now, do I want group 1, 2, or 3? This is for group 1. I'm selecting this for my below grade level readers. Now, what is it I want them to do with this? I have to put my directions here under annotations. What is it I want them to do with the material I'm giving them? I'm going to click over here and I'm going to put highlight words you don't know, and then I'm going to click Save, and when I click Save, I can tell that I have done so by the external link that comes up. Yay! I have now saved my assignment for group 1. Now, what am I going to do for group 2? Well, let's go look. I'm now going to assign the same similar activity for group 2, but I'm going to modify it a little bit. If I want to get rid of something I have on group 1, I click the X mark and take it off. So I'm going to click my X and remove it. And now I'm going to add a little something different to my group 2 reading and assignment. Let's pick something else to add. And I picked Everyday Life, the Middle Ages, the Feudal System. And to make my title different, I've done a -2 out to the side of it so that I know it's different from the one I saved for group 1. And as you can see, I've already got a well done on that. Now, I'm going to assign this to my group 2 students. Let's go to group 2. And for my group 2 students, I'm going to click on Groups. I'm going to select group 2, moves it to my middle section, and I'm going to tell them what it is I want them to do. I want them to highlight main idea and supporting evidence. I'm wanting a little bit more out of group 2 than I wanted out of group 1. And then I click Save the Assignment, and I'm able to save my assignment again. Now, to repeat that, if I wanted to go in and give something to grade 3, I would do the same process all over again. Differentiating with the active classroom is really easy. You design a lesson, assign it out to the first group, then tweak it and assign it out to the second or third group. It's easy to differentiate by Lexile level because our Lexile levels are listed in a column all their own. It's easy to differentiate by types of reading. We have such a range of reading styles and formats that you can find something to meet the needs of all your students. And then differentiating isn't limited to just reading, but we can differentiate by the types of media we use, whether it's audio, video, reading, simulations, or maybe it's a web-based activity. Lots of ways for you to differentiate within an active classroom. And creating your groups is easy. Your students are already listed on the left-hand side of your column when you go into groups, and you're just picking those students that need to go into which group. It's a very simple process. So later, when you do have a question, please email me at pgothart@socialstudies.com.